Some people get mad at folks who are getting verified
Mhm.
or like, why do you care so much about getting verified? Look, I don't. I do not. But you know who does? The companies that I want to sponsor me.
Mhm.
Because you and I understand the number of followers you have on Twitch doesn't matter. It matters how many active live viewers you have.
Yeah.
Companies do not understand that yet. They do not get that. But if I have a check mark, every company understands on social media check mark is good.
Yeah.
Or then more followers you have, that's good.
Right.
So that's why we keep chasing numbers. I'd be happy, like I'm ecstatic. My community is so kind. We're great. We say good morning to each other every morning on Discord.
Yeah.
But I'm still small, and companies are still like, you only got like what 7,000 on Instagram? Like, ugh. I'm like, oh my god, like what do you want from me?
Welcome to Tardux, a podcast for content creators to come on, share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today I am super excited. I have Ash Vandelay. Welcome.
Hello.
So glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
No
I
problem.
always appreciate the invite to podcast. I think it's really
Yeah.
nice because like you spend your time, this is your thing, and you're like, come on into my thing. And I'm like, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So my pod is dedicated to capturing stories of content creators, and that's all it is. So every week I try to get somebody new. Originally we started doing focus on the Escape from Tarkov community, and
Hmm.
then it branched out to some Fortnite people, and ended up meeting Break, who half F1 and half gaming, and I found your stream. It's like, oh man, she would have a great story. So that's how we're here.
I got a lot of stories. I can talk a lot too. Maybe
That's
not even
good.
stories. I can just talk a lot. So we can fill up an
Perfect.
hour pretty easily, depending how long you want this podcast to be.
All right. Well, it's your pod. We can go as long as you want. So, what we normally do to start things off, we start with 3 random questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
All
Are
right.
these rapid fire? Sorry.
Not really rapid fire. No,
I'm not
some of
prepared.
them tend to go for a little while. So don't worry about quick answers.
Oh, okay.
So, when you were growing up, what did you want to be?
Ooh, that's a great question. I wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, very cool. All right. Last movie you saw?
Oh, it was on the plane. I watched the new Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yes. Yep. That was
A
pretty
great film.
good. And favorite place you've ever traveled?
Ooh, well, that's hard. I ooh ah, I've been very fortunate and very lucky and privileged to travel a lot because my family's originally from Poland, so we go visit
Oh,
my
no way.
grandparents. Um, yeah, my parents immigrated in 1985.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm the first generation Polish American, and we have family back there, so we visit. But every time we visit, we always like make a trip to go somewhere else. So like Portugal was absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and then recently this summer I went to Amsterdam for TwitchCon, and I think that just happened to be really good fun. Not only the city, but also like just the friends I was with and the
Yeah.
company I was with. So
Nice. And now, was that your first TwitchCon?
yes.
Oh, very cool. All right, we'll ask about that a little bit later. So, but first, before you hit that go live button, what's your background?
Um, you mean like what do I do before I hit the go
Yeah,
live
like
button?
before you
Essentially?
found that go live button, you jumped onto Twitch. What did you do? How did you get from to how did you get to Twitch essentially?
Oh, wow. Great question. I think like a lot of more recent creators is because of pandemic.
Yeah,
Stuck at home, couldn't really socialize or go out. Like sure you can text with friends and FaceTime,
yeah,
but eventually I found Twitch because I started playing Stardew Valley because I got a Nintendo Switch
nice.
to pass the time and start playing some more video games. So I went on Twitch and I started watching people play Stardew Valley, and then I found people, me, my brother, and a group of friends that played Call of Duty,
Yeah,
just to like hang out. It was more like a phone call. We
mm-hmm.
never took it seriously. We just like sat in bushes and like
Yeah,
talked to each other. Like we were never, or like guarded a house. We were definitely one of those campers that like people would stumble upon us and be like, "What are you guys doing? You're camping." And we're like, "No, we're just like talking to each other. We don't feel like going on the phone." Um, and I think I mentioned it to my therapist that I was doing Twitch because I'm very open about my mental health and
yeah,
my general anxiety and now ADHD. And I mean, in addition to the anxiety, my anxiety did not turn to ADHD. They're two different things. And she's like, "Oh, why don't you start a community for motorsports on Twitch?"
yeah.
I was like, "You're crazy." Um, but eventually there was a goal we worked towards. So December 2020, I hit that go live button, and my first game I played was Portal because I was the most comfortable with it, and
Yeah,
I play it like twice a year because it's just so fun. It's
yeah.
just so easy. at this point. And eventually the F1 season started around March of 2021. I had my brother and my best friend Sal join me, which was nice because like we all kind of knew about sports. Like
Yeah.
Sal's really good with sports. My brother knew about Formula One, and like I'm comfortable with like my brother, so it was like easy to start doing that, and
Yeah.
it just kind of just kept rolling from there.
Oh, no way. So where did the love of racing come from then? Or when did that start?
Mm. Um, as I mentioned, my family is Polish.
Yeah.
My dad, I always say he's the conductor of any hype train of Polish people doing something cool. So Robert Kubica was in Formula One. He came into my room. He's like, "We gotta support this Polish guy," and I was like, "Okay, sure."
Yeah.
So we started watching Formula One, and
That was
then
it?
yeah, that was really it. I started watching Formula One when I was what, 13, 14.
Yeah.
And then when I went to college in Florida. So the Daytona 24 was really popular, and learned a little bit about NASCAR, etc.
Yeah.
And then as I started streaming, some people asked, they're like, "Hey, if you do this for F1, like, would you be interested in doing it about NASCAR, like going to IMSA stuff?" And kind
Yeah.
of, and I realized for content creation, everyone's like, "Oh, you need a niche."
Yeah.
And I was like, I realized Formula One is too niche, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I can kind of backtrack a little bit and go into motorsports.
Right.
So sure, I only did Formula One watch-alongs, but now I've added IndyCar and NASCAR.
Yeah.
And of course they conflict, which is a whole scheduling prioritizing thing. But yeah, I've kind of stepped back from like the niches of niche of like diving, and like I feel like motorsports pretty niche enough
Yeah.
from the sports category. So that's where I am right now.
Oh, wow. Holy cow. Yeah, it is. You're so right, though. Like, if you just focus on F1, that is, that, especially over here in the States, you have NASCAR to choose from. You have rally, you have, motocross. There's so much more than
Right.
just F1 that you could, expand to.
Yeah, and eventually, it's interesting. I was talking to one of my friends. He was saying like he's not getting any more followers on, for example, on TikTok.
Yeah.
And he has like 300K, I think, for
Yeah.
F1. And I was like, yeah, at some point it definitely tops out. Like at some
Mm-hmm.
point you're done with F1 fans. Like that's all it's all if you're thinking about the people who like Formula One
Yeah.
are on TikTok, like your kind of content,
Yeah.
and just keep narrowing down the categories of your audience. Maybe
Yeah.
you've just topped out there.
Right.
So yeah, then you just gotta go into more broader
Yeah.
general motorsports and try to capture them.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, from your teenage years to now, what have been some of your favorite racing moments that you've seen?
I was in Coda when Kimmy won. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool. And I was been fortunate enough to go to a MotoGP race, and that's
Yeah.
insane.
Oh, I
Um,
bet.
I've seen. I mean, I always go on when I'm on stream. When we talk about MotoGP, I'm always like, "Oh, type in Marc Marquez saves," because he's like top 10 saves, like contemplations that people put together of him just saving the bike when he's
Yeah.
like completely laying down while going so quick. It is crazy. So I think being in that MotoGP race in Coda in the same year as when the Kimi win was
Yeah.
pretty fun. Daytona 24 is my first experience this year, and I'm obsessed. I think the whole culture around it and just being at Daytona
Yeah.
during the IMSA 24 is a whole experience that you definitely need if you're a motorsport fan.
So because you're there, you're full day. Like, what do were you camping out, or what's the?
Okay, don't tell everyone,
Right.
but I mean, I didn't stay the whole time.
Okay. Did you just
Some
come for the
people
last few
do.
races, last few laps?
Oh no, I was
Oh,
there
okay.
till like we just saw the fireworks show. I think I was there till around like 11-ish,
Yeah.
midnight. Let's just say 11. I'll be
All
fair.
right.
I'll say 11. And then we woke up super early and came back around 5:36.
Yeah.
So I just missed a couple. It's fine.
Yeah.
But we were all there we were all there Friday, part of Saturday, most
Yeah.
of Saturday, and then me trying to backtrack into how many hours I've been. Everyone's gonna be like, "Wow, you're not a real motorsports fan. You were in there for 24 hours." I need sleep, okay? And I'm not okay. I'm okay to admit that. Some people do bring hammocks
Yeah.
and sleep in the grandstands. Some people just bring sleeping bags and sleep in the grandstands, and that's all right and dandy.
Yeah.
Some people have like the whole camping spot reservation, which is
Yeah.
his whole own culture, which is pretty cool to see when you're driving through. I am someone who needs a hotel bed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from New York City. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't camp. You can't pay me to camp.
Yeah.
So I will be at the Airbnb if you need me.
Then I would not recommend you going to Bristol.
Oh no, why?
That's campers and trailers. That's you're in the back hills of Tennessee, and that was my first NASCAR exposure, first track I went to, and
Mhm.
I thought I was going to die. I went there with my friends from Mississippi, and we're like, where are we? We're in the middle of nowhere, and we will go up to the track, and I'm seeing they're letting people bring beer, their coolers in. It's like, this is not going
Yeah.
to end well. and it was the friendliest sporting event I've ever been to in my life.
Oh, I love the coolers. That's a whole thing. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, what was so unique about the 24-hour that, that's just like, is like, wow, that was amazing. I, definitely need to
I think
experience it.
like, with Bristol,
Yeah.
similar to the 24, everyone's just excited to be there. Or
Yeah.
like everyone, the cars, right? The new LMDHs that were there, people were pumped to. The access you get as like just a general fan,
Yeah.
in all these motorsports, except Formula One, which we can talk
Yes.
about some other. We
Mm-hmm.
can talk about later. It's just you're right. Like I can touch this LMDH. Like I'm so surprised. Like you can key this car. Like why? They trust so many people. It is insane how close you can get, and the
Yeah.
drivers are right there. So just the accessibility, the buzz. Everyone's just excited.
Yeah.
And at some point for me, it's white noise.
Yeah.
But my friend who I bought, he was just like, "Oh God, it's so loud for 24 hours. Like my head hurts when we get back to the Airbnb with everyone." And I was like, "Oh, to me, I love it. Like it's
Right.
just you fall asleep to it. Like that wasn't an issue at all."
Yeah.
But as someone who is not used to hearing that sound,
Mm-hmm.
or especially for that long period, it's just like, "Oh my gosh, my head hurts."
Yeah.
I was like, "No, I love it."
Yeah. Aw. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there with the experience, the accessibility you have. Like I've done after that
Mhm.
Bristol race, we did Daytona and we've done Charlotte with hot passes. And it is like you said, you could key the car. Like, oh, there's Danica. She's just getting out of the car. Can I get a picture with you?
Yeah.
It's like after the 400, sure, yeah. It's like it's amazing the accessibility you have.
And just how the drivers are so. I mean, they're like walking back and forth. You
Yeah.
just stop them and take a selfie. Notice that in IndyCar too.
Yeah.
They're just scootering back to the paddock, and you're like, "Hey, can you take a selfie?" Or like Tony Kanaan just walking around, and people are grabbing photos with him. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, great! This is like our normal day."
Right. Yeah. Like for the national anthem, you're on you're standing there right next to you. Look, oh, there's everybody, and it's just it's
Right.
such a really neat experience.
It might be even more lost on me, but if you're a kid and you get to experience
Yeah.
that, it's just like that sense of wonder, I guess. You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is so cool." And how you can just talk to the engineers or talk to the pit crew. There's someone, he sees a kid staring at him while he's
Yeah.
like fixing Firestone was there, right, for IndyCar. He's doing some of the tires, and he like calls the kid over, and he's like explaining what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because it's just right there in his face, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
For kids and families, it's definitely worth it.
Oh, totally. And speaking of kids, so I got a couple of neat stories I heard. So when we were at the Coca-Cola 400, we were watching. The drivers were going up into their Sunday morning meeting, right, to get final instructions and whatever news. And Carl Edwards comes up, and he's about to go in, and there's a kid there in a wheelchair, and he stops, and he goes, "Hey, you want to come in with me?" So he takes the kid into the drivers' meeting with nobody's allowed to go except for drivers and officials. And I was talking to the lady afterwards, and it turned out that kid was a Make-A-Wish kid. His favorite driver is Carl Edwards. He spent the entire weekend with Carl Edwards. But for the drivers' meeting, nobody's allowed in. But he said, "You know what? Bring him here. When I go in, what are they going to say to me?" And that's, he went in there, and it was really cool. I guess in the meeting, he said, if I win this race this weekend, I'm going to give, that kid the trophy. And yeah, it was something special.
And I feel like they just care a little bit more, or
Yeah.
maybe differently. I don't want to say there's like F1 just like hates kids, like that's
No,
just
but
rude.
it's
But like it's just something about these other racing series that they're like, this is second nature. Like this makes sense. We should do this. Like
right.
absolutely.
Yeah. And to add on to that, so the same lady, she had another story for us. She said, because Jeff Gordon always had a good reputation being with kids and whatnot. So what she said is, when Jeff was just starting out, I guess he walked by a bunch of kids and just ignored them. I guess Dale Sr. took him up, threw him up against the wall, and said, "Don't you ever effing walk by those kids again. Those kids will be fans for life." And I don't know if that was a turning point for Jeff to be fan friendly or but it was like, I love hearing those stories. It's so cool.
I mean, he has a point. Like that's how you get fans and new fans in those kind of memories. Because otherwise, those kids are like, "Oh wow, that guy's a dick," and I don't want to root for him ever. And he could just be having like a bad day, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that was it. There's something recently on Twitter. Gosh, I think it's the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
Me looking. What does this girl know about hockey? Just kidding. I'm a Rangers fan. And it was this little girl who was a junior reporter, and she got shushed away by another reporter.
Yeah.
And I remember someone commented, and they're like, "If you ever did that in the motorsport paddock, we would absolutely annihilate you. Like you cannot do that to kids or like someone who's like trying to like break in or something."
Oh, that's cool. So let's jump over to video games for a second. So where did video games start for you?
Hmm. For some reason, I'm remembering, well, obviously Zelda Ocarina of Time,
Yeah.
but I also remember on the PlayStation, original PlayStation, Need for Speed with my brother,
Yeah.
and I remember a lot of GoldenEye, not on the
Yes.
PlayStation, obviously.
Yeah.
So around like those are the kind of games I played. I think I grew up with, I mean, my older brother, so he was really into video games, and I also grew up with some family friends who just wanted. There's like four of them, and their parents were like, "Here, play video games, be
Yeah.
distracted." So every time I went over, it was just like, "Yeah, let's play this."
Yeah. And then over the years, what have been some of your favorites that just stuck out for you?
Sure, I like puzzle games.
Yeah.
I'm a big crossword person. I'm a big puzzle person. So some of them are. It's called the Room series, and you can
Mm-hmm.
do it in VR, which is kind of fun. But
Ah.
essentially, the Room. It's like they try to make it some like mysterious. Like there's like a story to it.
Yeah.
Like not that I can remember what it was, but you're essentially just solving puzzles and throughout different rooms, and some of the puzzles are interconnected and things like that. I feel like Portal is just one big puzzle with an
Yeah.
actually pretty good story and like a spunky, sassy, um, evil robot.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. But mostly those, but I've played God of War recently. I never played The Last of Us, and that's popular with the HBO
Yeah.
show, and chat was like, you need to play it, but I get jump scared really easily.
Mm-hmm.
So I played a little bit of it, then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go on Twitch and watch someone else play
Yes.
play it.
Oh. And now, all-time favorite game?
Oh, I don't know if I have one. I don't know if I can just pick one.
Yeah. All right.
You're telling me if I had to play one game for the rest of my life?
Yeah. Or it's the last time you ever play a video game. What is that video game going to be?
I gotta pick a really long video game.
Yes.
What will keep me alive the longest?
Yeah.
Oh man. I really liked, maybe it was because I just appreciated the mechanics and the story behind it. I appreciate the not the most recent God of
Yeah.
War. What was the one right before Ragnarok?
Yeah.
That was a really good one.
All right. That works. So let's talk about streaming. So when you hit that first go live button, what was that, what was that experience like? Were you nervous or were you already comfortable because like you said, you were doing it with, your friends and your brother?
First pressed it, I was a little nervous because, oh gosh, I'm sure you've seen everyone and their mother has some kind of video of like what to do to be a top streamer. And you're like, oh gosh, I better watch all these videos so I can be a top streamer. And then I have all these like, notes in my head of what to do, what
Yeah.
not to do, like make sure you do this, make sure you do that. And then you just realize it's just if you enjoy talking, which is like you enjoy talking, you obviously thank people for coming in and you just don't stop talking.
Yeah.
It just kind of comes naturally at some point. Of course, you refine it by doing certain things, and that's why I kind of like streaming and motorsports in general because you just never stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken like certain classes to be like better, to not specifically for streaming, but taking classes to or to watch YouTube videos to get better at something to be then better at streaming.
Yeah.
But no, the first time I pressed it, I think it was okay, and then you just kind of learn. You get people coming in, and it was really just the rest of the branding on social media that you have to do.
Yes.
It's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. But now, what about when those strangers first came in and started talking to you? They're like, where did they come from? You're talking to me. What are you watching me for?
Yeah, it definitely gets strange, especially if I was playing something silly, like I was just doing Call of Duty with my brother or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, but you realize people are just kind of like how I found the Stardew Valley streamers or the Call of Duty streamers. Everyone just wants a place. I kind of think of Twitch as like a bar, and each channel is a different bar and different vibe, and that's fine. You just gotta find one and try different ones out to see what the vibe is, and if you want to hang out there and be a patron there.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, so I just trying to make myself very clear about what I was doing and who I was and what the point of the channel was. And I guess during the pandemic with my anxiety and then motorsports coming along, people kind of resonated with that.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Yeah, the whole bar relationship is interesting. I've had a couple of people on, and they said, yeah, basically, I'm like the local bar. I'm the barkeeper, bartender. I come in and just talk to people and help and be friendly.
Yeah, it's really funny though when someone gets angry and they're like, "I just said this. It's my opinion." And I was like, "Yeah, it's my fucking bar, so leave." Like I can't. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's your opinion. Everyone's got one. Shove it up your butt. Like everyone gets so defensive. I was like, no, this is not a public website. I mean, it's a public website, but this exact channel that you're on, I can do technically whatever I want with you. Yeah, and I would like to kick you out. And I'm going to do that. Goodbye.
Speaking of, sort of that interaction, what's been the toughest thing since, going live on Twitch or just on social, being a sort of an influencer and a streamer, content creator?
I think one thing is constantly pumping out content.
Yeah.
People have noticed this. I'm kind of happy that people said this to me. They're like, "Wow, you put out a lot of stuff." I was like, "Oh, thank you." I thought it was just like, I thought everyone was doing it. And they're like, "No, you put out something every single day on all social media." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I thought that's what we're supposed to do." And they're like, "No, you're the." And I haven't slowed down, but I've just recognized that if I don't have to force myself to do something,
Yeah.
just being on top of that or making my workflows just a little bit easier,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's from stream or something else. Another thing, I don't know if the other streamers talked about this, but parasocial relationships that people develop with the streamer.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird sometimes, and people are like, I don't tell everyone, believe it or not, on my social media because I feel people think I'm pretty open,
Yeah.
and especially on my streams, they're like, "Oh wow, we talk about everything." I was like, "Yeah, but I don't. I keep certain things from you.
Yeah.
I've actually lied about certain things to keep myself safe.
Right.
Like you don't know, you don't know certain things, and there's a lot of things I leave out about my day,
Mm-hmm.
my job, my actual title, like all these things that I've shared with you, and then eventually someone recently messaged me about something
Yeah.
and I responded and they're like, we know you better than you think." And I was like, "No, you don't. You don't know anything." And I think that's an interesting boundary that you have to set. And just remember, it's like just either ignore the message or just whatever. Just
Yeah.
if you're uncomfortable, like make sure like that person gets dealt with, of course.
Yeah.
But if it's just keep those boundaries and like keep that information or anything you want private, it's totally your prerogative as a streamer.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's, as many good people are, it just takes one, bad apple, and yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I think it's also just maybe mental, emotional load of
Mm-hmm.
like having another person like in your life, like asking questions. And I'm like, this is so, and it's weird for the streamer because you guys know us or
Right.
like, the information we give you, but I have no idea who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Your name is
Some random.
Fire Bear 555. Like I
Yeah.
have no idea what you look like. I know nothing really about you except like your personality when we're talking on the chat a little
Yeah.
bit. But I've been to motorsport like races where someone will come up to me. They're like, "Oh my god, Ash! Like, it was so great to see you. Hope your drive was okay. Like, I know the Toyota Camry you rented out was giving you trouble from Twitter." And I'm like, "Who the frick are you? Like, do you have a name? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, can you please shake my hand and be like, hey, I am Fire Bear 555.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. How was your rental? Because I know I broke down from Twitter or something like that." Just spouting off all these random facts. I'm like, how do you know this?
Uh, and to add on to that, you said you went to TwitchCon, and being
Hmm.
TwitchCon, so you went to TwitchCon sort of as you have a dual role or a dual experience. One is as a fan, you're going and seeing peers and whatnot, meeting first people. Also, people who are fans of you meeting you. So like you turn this way, there's a fan. You turn this way, now you're the fan of that person. That must be an
Yeah.
interesting experience.
That was pretty cool. But I think now being, excuse me, a streamer myself, you just realize that streamers are people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're just all people, and it's okay. Like I know some people get nervous, and I understand like with my anxiety and stuff. But it was nice to have other content creators there, folks who I've met through Twitch, and just talk about either content creation
Yeah.
or Twitch stuff. And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's freaking annoying." And I'm like, "Oh my god, thank you." Because of course I can talk to my parents, my friends about Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll listen. They'll try to understand. But you need to have something like you need someone who's gone through it with you to be
Right.
like, "Oh gosh, that was annoying," and you'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, thank you. Yes, it was." So
Yeah.
it's definitely cool to see how many people went as one fans, two
Yeah.
as streamers, and how the whole like how Twitch essentially brought everyone together to like really intermingle and break down those barriers of like, oh, I'm a streamer, I'm a fan. Be like, no, let's just all
Right.
we're all just hanging.
Yep.
And it's funny how many niches there are. So I was hanging out with some Tarkov folks
Yeah.
in Amsterdam, and then they're like, "Oh, that's so and so," and I was like, or I was talking to someone else, and they're like, "Oh, that dude's huge in like this other country." I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, great, he was really nice." Like I don't know. It's
Yeah.
funny how different folks value different people, I guess, or like how like for example, the Tarkov community is so big, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, that's so cool, it's so and so." I'm like, "Oh, that's so and so." I was like, "Oh, that." I was just talking to him about like the chocolate pudding that they were serving. Like,
Yeah. Now you bring up a good point about your not struggles, but like, you're having a tough day and talking to your parents about it, they have no concept of what's tough or what's not.
Right.
I've had a bunch of people on, like, Deadly Slob and Markstrom, who are, from the larger Tarkov community, and they have a team together, a group where they would get together every Sunday evenings and just, vent, because you can't vent to your friends. Your IRL friends have no idea how, the struggles of, like, yeah, my numbers suck. Why is this? And bouncing ideas off. And that's so important, I
Yeah.
think, to have peers you can, be open with and understand what you're going through.
Damn, I do that occasionally, but that's such a good idea to do it like frequently. Myself, and I do that to Blake with sometimes. I'll
Yeah.
be like, Blake, look, I'm down. Maybe what's going on? And he like checks me, and he's like,
Yeah.
stop, you need to not do this. He's like, and it's kind of nice to bounce ideas off each other. And there's another great streamer, currently Red Bull content creator as well, Pondon. Great kid, and we'll talk about stuff from time to time, because
Yeah.
I also look at streaming as like a business, and I know that's the way to look at it. But some people just go on to stream, and I'm like, great, awesome, cool
Right.
for you. I'm very much, I guess the way I want to look at it is a business. Be like, you want certain numbers, you want to put out certain production.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, like, I look at myself, I rewatch my streams. I don't get too deep in my numbers, but
Yeah.
the numbers are important. What are my competitors, quote unquote, the other Twitch streamers doing?
Yeah.
What are they doing well? What can I improve? Things like that. So him and I will just bounce outside ideas off each other, and he'd be like, oh, I was thinking this. And I was like, oh, well, like, why don't you put this kind of twist on it to make it a little bit different than the other streamer? So
Yeah.
that's a good idea. We do that like occasionally. But I
Yeah.
feel like once a week is definitely good enough. Or we can definitely come to each other and be like, oh my gosh.
Absolutely, because you have, parallel things or similar things that you probably stress about, or, just question about. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's, it's great. And Blake's a great guy. He's actually been on the pod.
Yeah, he's definitely brought myself down from like spiraling in my head from like stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, like, why am I not getting this opportunity? Or like, what did I miss here? Like, what did I do wrong in this video? And he's like, nothing.
Yeah.
At some point, it is out of your control.
Right.
It is,
Absolutely.
you're a slave to the algorithm. Just put out the stuff you want to put out. Oh my God, thank God. Thank you, Blake. You're right. You're right. I'm just being a little sensitive today.
And now, since you hit that go live button or started creating content, what's been sort of, some of the, wonderful moments, some of the, highlights, like, holy crap, I can't believe that just happened.
It's always when someone messages me I've gotten a few messages. It's like, hey, my daughter watches your stuff, or like my daughter likes looking at your content, or I do some educational content on women in motorsports. And they're like, yeah, my daughter like watched your video, and now she's doing a report on this woman because you mentioned it in her video. And like, my daughter appreciates, like, wants to, like, is playing Gran Turismo now because she saw you playing it with the controller, because we can't get a wheel yet, but she's super interested in like trying it and like racing. Like those always make me like tear up. A lot of people are like, oh, that's so cheesy. I'm like, no, that really means a lot. That one, that you like trust me with your child to watch.
Yes.
Because there are definitely multiple minds.
Yeah.
And that I garnered some interest in motorsport. It's something that's really passionate to me. So I'm like, hopefully we can welcome in this new person in. If not even children, I've had someone say like, hey, me and my fiance just like watched all your content, and we really, really, really appreciate it. This is really cool stuff. Like that simple message. So if you just do that to your favorite content creator today, anyone listening, go to your favorite content creator, just shoot him a DM. Be like, thank you so much. Like, I've really enjoyed this. I had a great time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It like really goes a long way.
Awesome. And you just brought up something that I wanted to get into a little later, but now is a good time to get into it. Somebody's daughter reaching out to you and, showing interest into the motorsports, and NASCAR's, they've had some females that like Danica and past females, and even in the, the lower circuits now, and even my local track, I took my daughter to a race last year, and, they, the 14-year-olds went around and they get out and they start to talk. And it's like, Dad, that's a girl. It's like, yeah, that's a girl, Olivia. Yeah. It's like, wow, they let girls race. Yeah, they let girls race and they kick ass. It's just, but when you look at F1, I'm surprised there's no females that have cracked into that upper echelons yet.
I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
I actually did a video about this today. If you think about how many boys get into go-karting,
yeah,
and how many barely make it to F1,
yeah,
think about how little how like the small number of women or girls get into go-karting.
Yeah.
And like, of course, I'm not gonna make it to F1. Like one person, I think in 2018, in Britain,
Yeah.
the go-karting license ratio for boys to girls under the age of 16 was 14-1.
Oh.
So if you think
Wow.
about that,
Yeah.
and then increase the numbers, and then of course one boy will make it to F1 eventually as he
Right.
grows up. And if you're looking at those numbers, if one's going to make it from that group of
Yeah.
men, like who's going to make it from that group of women?
But-
But luckily, we have a lot of other motorsport series like GT World Challenge,
Yeah.
NASCAR. There's your own NASCAR, fun fact. So,
But even the 14-1 ratio seems low though. It's like I'm surprised that that's you know, it's just, especially today's day and age, you know, where you have the accessibility and the roadblocks shouldn't be there. I hope they're not there.
I think with our generations, it's changing. Like for example, like you bringing your daughter to the track, and I think we'll see in like 20 years, 30 years, more women.
Yeah.
But I remember growing up that I would get told not to do certain things or certain sports because that's not what a girl does. Like I was told, I distinctly remember this. I was climbing a tree, one of my favorite trees in a park where I grew up, and my mom saying, "Don't do that to me. Like girls don't have scraped legs because it's going to look bad in your dress." And I was like, that is ridiculous. I remember thinking as a child, like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
I'm going to climb this tree. But even at the age of 30, I still get stupid comments saying like, "Oh, you're a woman. Why should I listen to you about motorsports?" I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, that is still dumbfounded that there's idiots out there that still act that way. And especially on Twitch, it's just I don't get it.
I think I don't know. I was going to say I have to remember that Twitch is a bunch of little kids. And then I was like, I don't want to be like, some kids are actually pretty nice. I don't want to like generalize all these children. But yeah, I think it's going to change in the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But because of what's been done and because we have the attitudes of folks who are raising the kids now,
right,
or around the kids and can mold their minds and being like, and just as boys can do whatever they want, girls can do whatever they want to. You want to swap sports or go to sports or vice versa, go for it.
Yep, absolutely. So now from a streaming standpoint, if somebody was going to go live for the first time, what kind of advice would you give them?
Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But you know what? You're not wrong with that. So I had Devil Dog Gamer on, and he said, yeah, don't do it. The stress, the mental aspect of it is just, it's killer because you're sitting in a room 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day, just, you know, and there's some truth to that.
I mean, I feel like I lucked out because I do not do that. My streams are like, well, not my watch along streams, my week streams where I just do sim racing. It's like 2 hours. I'm like, I'm gonna go call it. But I realized during my watch along days, for example, or during the days where it's multiple motorsports, I'll be going for 8-12 hours.
Yeah.
I guess I have so much advice that I could possibly give. My biggest one is I always ask people this. Oh, people do ask this. They're like, hey, what should I do if I want to start streaming? I was like, anyone could start streaming.
Yeah.
Do you want to start streaming to start streaming? Because that's fine. That's easy. You don't even need a camera if you don't want to. Yeah. You just need a software in the game and you can start streaming. Do you want to be a successful streamer? Now we got a whole different set of rules.
Yes.
Because anyone can just start streaming. But some like quick mistakes that I've seen or like newbie mistakes is like you do constantly need to keep talking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll join streams for like beginner sim racers or sim racers that have like 1 or 2 viewers and they're not saying anything and it's just silence and they're just sitting in the dark.
Yeah.
And I'll be in chat and I'll say something and I'll try to have a conversation because I know what that's like. It's hard also not to talk if no one's talking. So I'll just like try to start a conversation. I'll send like a bunch of messages and either they don't have chat open or they're just not reading it. And then I'm like, okay, maybe they don't want to stream to get like they're just streaming to stream. So if you're one of those, it's totally fine if you don't want to respond to messages. But if you do want to get popular, I think one of the biggest things that I've realized people have complimented me on is responding to most messages. I gotten better at like filtering ones I don't want to read out loud.
Yeah.
But most of the time they're not. I mean, 99% of the time they're not bad. Like I'll read every single one out loud. I'll address every single one. Thank for every follow. Like people just want attention.
Mm-hmm.
Also keep streams interesting. And I don't mean this in a negative way at all. But do you remember how in kindergarten the teacher would always change it up with themes and like my teacher had really cool outfits depending like what book we were reading, what day. You got to do that for streams. It's like a kindergarten class. You got to keep them entertained. So I have like a banana costume. I got my Firehawk hat from IndyCar recently. You just keep it fun, keep it lively.
Your checkered
And
flag shirt or something like that, right?
yeah, exactly. I got my Sunoco water bottle for NASCAR. It looks like a fuel can. Like I just got these. It also holds water, which is great, or vodka. No one ever knows. I think another big thing for me was, this is a big one. And it's gonna shock a lot of people. You ready?
Yep.
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Just be a nice person.
Yes.
And if you're not a nice person, fine. Just don't be an asshole then. Mm-hmm. And it will surprise tons of people how many content creators are not nice.
Yeah.
Or would you say professional? Because I've been on email chains with content creators and with companies. And I guess because I work in corporate America, I'll be like, dear so and so, or like, hey so and so, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for this. Hey, I appreciate the heads up. Cheers, Ash. Other content creator, cool. Why are we doing it? Why? Like the letter Y and a question mark, or just why? Or be like, I don't want to do this. And I'll be like, my brother in Christ, what is happening right now? Like, why are you acting this way? And then to each other too. Like there's some folks who like actively either not undermine each other, but like will leave people out or not invite people to certain things, but like invite every. It's insane, and I'm like, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be in my own bubble over here.
Yeah,
that's my bar. We're not like that.
No, you're right, and you're from some aspects of maybe they never had a job in corporate where they had to deal professionally with people, and that's that's all they know. And the other piece of it about being an asshole on stream is like, you don't want to come across as an asshole. You don't want to come off like you're bored or unhappy, because somebody can go easily find somebody else who is happy, and just, you don't want that negativity.
But I've realized a lot of people, or like being an asshole sells. We've seen that trend I've seen recently on social media. And one of my favorite like social media, like TikTok people mentioned that. She's like, can you stop using each other to like disparage each other and try to get views on TikTok? Like, what are you doing? And then there's a few folks who's just like, the whole shtick is kind of being like, what's the degree above, like right below asshole? So not like quite there yet. Like sometimes they get there, but they're like right there on the cusp where you're like, ugh, like I feel weird.
Yeah, cringy.
But I don't feel yeah. I would, because one of my other pieces of advice is to be cringe, but I mean that in the way of like being yourself.
Yes.
Because it's better that you be yourself and be out there than, because you want to find people like you. Like I want people who are going to be kind.
Yeah.
You can dislike a driver in my chat. You need to give a reason why, but not like a dumb reason, okay? Don't be like, I dislike Lewis Hamilton because of the way he dresses, because you're just an idiot if you say that, okay?
Yeah.
That's just not how life works. You can be like, I dislike how Lewis Hamilton drives.
Yep.
I wish he was more an aggressive driver like Max. And I'd be like, fair, cool. But you can't come to me and be like, Lewis Hamilton's an idiot.
Right.
Because that's not how we vibe. That's not even a reason. And he's not an idiot. Nope. So that's your problem. Or people will be like, Max Verstappen is a terrible person. I'd be like, is he though? Because by all accounts, he seems to be taking care of his girlfriend's daughter pretty well. Yeah. He seems to be very kind to people in the paddock, to his sister. Like, he seems to be a fine guy. So, yeah, that's just, people will definitely egg on other people in your streams just to start that conversation, because if the chat's flowing, the Twitch algorithm's like, yes, we like this. Which is why a lot of streamers will be like, ask a question, and they say if it's a yes, do one, type one, or if it's no, type two, so they get like people flood and Twitch is the best.
Interesting.
Yeah, or the emoji thing, people, or like emotes things, excuse me. Wow, the Sheevan stream. So yeah, no, in my bar we will not be assholes.
Yeah, well, that's good. And how would you describe the Ash stream?
Oh gosh, kind of like basically if you had ADHD. What did we do yesterday? We were talking about motorsport news just in general, because I was away for the weekend for IndyCar.
Yeah.
So didn't get a chance to talk with my stream about Formula 1 and NASCAR and everything. So we were just covering that. And Chase Elliott broke his leg recently.
Yep.
And he's going to be out for 6 weeks. And I randomly asked chat, who has ever broken a bone?
Yeah.
And then this reminded me of a conversation that I had in the Discord of pain. Because I was too scared, because I want to get a tattoo, but I said I was too scared because of the pain. And someone said it was like a bee sting. But I've never been stung by a bee. But I thought it was interesting that the unit of measurement of pain that she used was a bee sting.
Right.
So I was like, oh, wait, chat, who's ever got stung by a bee? And then we were talking about bee stings. And then someone said something about a nettle. Stinging
Oh,
Nettle,
stinging nettle. Yes, it's like a
which I didn't know what
plant.
it was till literally yesterday. And everyone made fun of me what it was. And someone goes, "Hey, have you heard of this other plant?" So then I Googled that plant.
Yeah.
So it turned into a botany lesson after Chase Elliott's broken leg. And then I was like, wait, how fast can we go from this plant that I forgot completely what it was
Yeah.
to back to NASCAR?
Yeah.
So we did that Wikipedia game where we try to go back to NASCAR, and then eventually rounded up. But yeah, motorsport news, a lot of random topics. I have these what I call essentially like fake conspiracy theories, like
Hmm.
big dairy in motorsports.
Yeah.
Because Indy 500 is sponsored by the Indiana Dairy Association,
Yeah.
and even during the Super Bowl, which is, I guess, not motorsports, but they had like the young dairy farmer something recipients for
Yeah.
kids. And I was like, how is big dairy and all these big sports? Like, how did this happen? And then there's also my conspiracy theory about big bowling in
Hmm.
motorsports. Because how is Go Bowling sponsoring all these cars and these like races? How much money do they have?
Right.
And then you look up Go Bowling, their whole shtick is lobbying for bowling in the United States of America. And I'm like, who is paying for that? So we got a lot of topics we have to cover on our stream.
Nice. I guess that's makes, approaching streaming from that aspect of things, it keeps it fresh versus trying to be a content creator who's just maining one game. You've got to live and breathe this one game every day.
Woof, yeah, that is difficult. I could not do that, especially the way my brain works. I would get bored very, very quickly.
Yeah.
The reason I like games is because they end. Like God
Yeah.
of War has an ending. Like Stardew Valley, I mean, technically it has no ending, but like your grandpa comes back and rates your farm. Like that's an ending, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to main one game, oof, I
Yeah.
wish I literally have no advice there. I have no idea how someone would
Yeah.
be able to do it. But I'm not really variety either because I stick within my motorsport niche. Like I do sim
Right.
racing or I'm covering motorsports or doing sports watch alongs
Hmm.
with Twitch. Um,
But
so I'm
there's
still staying
enough
with my
there
realm
to
and stuff.
keep it fresh. So whether it's
Yes.
NASCAR, F1,
I feel like
iRacing.
I feel like I have luckily the best of both worlds. Like I'm
Hmm.
maining motorsport, but I get to change it up from stream to stream about what I want to do within the realm of motorsport.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your Twitch partner story.
Hmm.
How did you find out? Where were you when you got that notification?
Oh, that's a great question. I know I was in my living room. I find out was it an email? I think I found out through email,
Yeah.
and then I went on Twitch, and like most of my friends were online, so I was like, look. I got it pretty quickly. I think I started streaming December 2020, and I think I got it December 2021 or
Yeah.
November 2021. But that was thanks to Twitch Sports and like the stuff we were doing with Formula One and NASCAR and
Yeah.
stuff. People kind of just jumped right on in pretty quickly. So yeah, I was in my living room, and I remember just going everywhere to everyone's Twitch stream, and I was like, look. I was just like super pumped. And wait, I know I hear 100 angry keyboards typing. Just check mark doesn't matter. Being a partner doesn't matter. And some people get mad at folks who are getting verified
Hmm.
or like, why do you care so much about getting verified? Look, I don't. I do not. But you know who does? The companies that I want to sponsor me.
Hmm.
Because you and I understand the number of followers you have on Twitch doesn't matter. It matters how many active live viewers you have.
Yeah.
Companies do not understand that yet. They do not get that. But if I have a check mark, every company understands on social media check mark is good.
Yeah.
They have that association in their head. Or the more followers you have, that's good.
Right.
So that's why we keep chasing numbers. I'd be happy. Like I'm ecstatic. My community is so kind. We're great. We say good morning to each other every morning on Discord.
Yeah.
We send a lot of pet pics. People got a lot of cute puppies and kittens that I keep seeing. And like I am stoked and I'm very fortunate to see a lot of events. But I'm still small and companies are still like, you only got like what, 7,000 on Instagram? Like, ugh. I'm like, oh my God, like, what do you want from me?
Yeah. And now
So I get mad. I get mad when people are like, "Oh, why are you chasing the check mark?" Or like, "Why do you care about partners?" Like, I don't. But like, if I ever want to make this a living,
Hmm.
I have to.
Yep. And other people, it's an achievement. It's a check mark. It's a check mark for them that they hit a goal. But like you said, it doesn't change your.
Right. It shouldn't change it
No,
anything
you
at
still
all.
got
You
to
should
put the effort
either
in. You can't
still
coast.
gotta put the effort in. You still can't do things you've always done once you've
Yeah.
reached that as well. You just gotta keep changing up your stuff to
Yeah.
something that's you.
And now over from going live for the first time to hitting that achievement and getting that check mark, was there a certain point along the way that you like, wow, I just, that made you feel like, yeah, I can get over this hump and I keep going, or it was just a gradual increase in viewers and people?
It was honestly, it was a gradual increase. I
Yeah.
was a little surprised as well because it was my first time applying, um, and yeah, a gradual increase. And I think something that I'm very fortunate that I did is I grew all my social media together at once. I know a
Yeah.
lot of folks like focus on Twitch
Mm-hmm.
and maybe YouTube or recently TikTok,
Yeah.
but I grew my Twitter, my Instagram, my YouTube, and my TikTok, like literally everything all at once up
Yeah.
together. And I think that helped my application a lot too, that I wasn't just like focusing on one item.
Yeah. Because just focusing on Twitch is not going to,
Oh,
get you
not
to grow.
anymore.
No, not anymore.
Mm-mm.
And if you hit all the socials, you never know what video is going to click and bring more viewers over to you to where you're streaming, or check out your YouTube content.
Every social media post is a lottery ticket,
Yep.
and not all lottery tickets are successful. But you just need one to win $1 million or whatever the jackpot is.
That is a great
Um,
quote right there.
it's just a game. That's
Yeah.
we're all literally playing, but you
Yeah.
can't play unless you don't post. Like you need to keep doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now, when did you start doing sort of IRL streams? Sort of like streams
Ooh,
from outside of the comfort of
yeah.
the home.
I first tried. What was I doing? Oh, because Twitch invited me to Miami for the Formula One race,
Oh, no way.
and I was like, there. Yes, you could post, but I think IRL streaming is also pretty popular. And I just wanted to like bring people along on
Yeah.
certain adventures. So I first tested it by walking around Washington D.C. downtown.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that I forgot that I live in a nice city with probably very nice cell phone service or
Yeah.
cell service. Because I just stream on my phone. I just use like the Streamlabs application. And it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to invest in one of those backpacks just yet, just because they're really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, when I went to Miami, I did the IRL stream down there, and that was great.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I just realized if I have good service, which is hard at a racetrack
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have not a lot of racetracks have good Wi-Fi, let
Right.
alone the number of people that log in
Mm-hmm.
during race day or they're during race day, and we're all sharing one cell phone tower in BFE, like upstate New York.
Yeah.
IRL streaming's harder, but I've done IRL streaming in various other places. Like recently when I went to Circuit of Americas for a MotoGP media day, or just other tracks where it's usually a qualifying day, or
Mm-hmm.
just like the day before the big day or 2 days before, where I'm just like walking around the track, or if I can capture some of the drivers in the media center is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, very cool. And now, what was your first Formula One race that you went to?
I think it was not the Circuit of the Americas that Kimmy won. It was Montreal,
Yeah.
which was great. I loved Montreal. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think we're very spoiled, or they're very spoiled in Montreal, because you were just jumping on the metro, and then
Yeah.
you had to walk a little bit when you got off, but that was fine because you're already on the premise of where the race was,
Yeah.
and everyone was there. And they had like vendors and cool stuff. You were like walking through the park,
Mm-hmm.
and it was beautiful. It was so easy. It was like an in and out.
Yeah, that's the only one I've been to, and I don't know if it's still this way. So like Friday, there's all sorts of concerts for the weekend, and like at one point, I think one of the streets they have basically seems like anybody who owns a Ferrari or some high end car, they bring it along the street, and you can go check out all the cool cars. And Montreal is just a fantastic city. It just feels like Europe.
Oh yeah, they had a lot of great food. I mean, we did a lot of outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Montreal was great. I really enjoyed that. Austin is great. Just getting to the track sometimes is
Yeah.
but because it's so far away.
Are you going to try to get to Vegas?
How much money do you think I make? Streaming, I'll tell you, not that much. Not enough to go to Vegas. I ain't buying a $2,000 ticket to
Yeah.
like look through a fence. I don't even know what like a $2,000 ticket could even get me in Vegas.
Yeah, I can only imagine because I heard how crazy prices were for the race in Miami. I can only imagine what Vegas is going to be like.
Yeah, Vegas is already very pricey. And then forget about the hotels. Like they're
Yes.
probably already sold out or anything within walking distance of the vicinity.
Yeah.
It'd
Yeah.
be great.
Oh,
But also
absolutely.
for me, it seems it's kind of more unless I can stream
Mm-hmm.
live from the track, which who knows if F1 copyright will ever let me do that.
Right.
It's more worth it for me to get the front page of Twitch and stream from home
Yeah.
to get all the American viewers who are also watching along
Mm-hmm.
than just to be at a race at general admission, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not being able to stream stuff.
Yeah. And the last few years, it seems like F1 is just starting to explode again into
Yeah, I
into the
mean, it
US.
was a as Bob Ross say this, it was a happy accident. I mean, not even the box films could have predicted
Oh God.
what would have happened. It was a perfect storm of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
everyone at home.
Yep.
This is the first kind that of like rank because now they just released the tennis one and like NASCAR has their own Indy car, but it was kind
Yep.
of just like following the bandwagon.
Right.
It just happened to be a perfect storm, and no one thought it would explode this much.
Yeah.
There's some interviews with like the director. He'd be like, "We didn't think this would happen." And there's like now we have to keep going. We thought
Right.
we'd do one season, and now we're on now 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I remember, so I've been loving F1 since the days of Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve back then. In Indy ended up getting the F1 race, but then a couple of years after, they had the tire debacle. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yes,
You know, you have people spending so much money to go to Indy, and because of a tire issue, you had 4 cars
60
race.
six, and no one's there.
You had 2 Ferraris and 2 Jordans, and it was just like, oh my
Tire
God.
gate.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. And it took a while, I think, for F1 to recoup that blow to their image, and it's in a wonderful spot right now. A lot of great stories, great drivers. It's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Say that. I'll just say yeah. I'll just agree with you there. Sure, sure they do. I got minor beef with F1.
Oh, you don't share. What's the F1 beef?
Yeah, you're like give me the beef. Um, my and I have different levels of beef. Beef
Yeah,
like there's like carpaccio level beef where it's just like small. I can push it aside. It's
yeah,
not a big deal. But then there's like A1 steak beef, tender like huge. T-bone steak. I don't even know what I would level this beef with. So here's my thing. There's a certain connotation that F1 gives off,
mm-hmm.
and there's a certain connotation they give or portray other motorsports as lesser than.
Oh yes,
And I think one of many greatest marketing things that F1 has ever pulled off is they're just not like every other motorsport. They're all getting greasy back there.
mm-hmm.
They're all getting tire shreds on each other. They're all dealing with wrenches and hitting each other and like just like every other motorsport.
Yeah,
Where are you coming off that this is all fancy? It is gross in those garages. Like it is noisy, it's loud. There's just like WD-40 everywhere.
yeah,
Like what do you think? Like what? Like we're not fancy. Like we're all just a bunch of like motorheads.
yeah.
And I don't know how somehow they put lipstick on a pig and they called it F1. And it's just like you don't have to do that. Like I don't know.
But
Rubs you the wrong way.
it's sort of like, you have the equestrian versus the guys who are racing around a track and, pulling their buggies. You have different levels, and when you think of the equestrian, you always think of like the polish, the posh, the rich people versus sort of like similar to F1. But when you look at NASCAR, it's like, oh, that's the lesser. But no, it's just gearheads and different types of racing.
Here's the next greatest marketing thing in the world that F1's ever done. That they've somehow convinced that like for example, like NASCAR is like the cheap version of motorsports. Do you know how much a NASCAR charter cost to have a goddamn team, even on the grid? Costs around $20 to $30 million.
Yep.
Okay, just to have one car on the grid, and then you're allowed to have up to 4 charters.
Mm-hmm.
And
and how many races? All around.
How many races?
Yeah.
And then how many times a car gets wrecked that you got to fucking fix it?
Mm-hmm.
You're paying your staff, you're paying the team, you're also moving constantly around.
Yeah.
Like NASCAR is also not cheap. Like none of these motorsports are cheap. And I don't know how F1 has somehow said like, "Oh, we're super expensive." I was like, "You all are."
Yeah, absolutely. No. Oh. So now, if you had to rank, actually, let's go back to NASCAR. What was your first NASCAR race you went to?
Dover Motor Speedway last year.
How was
Shout
that?
out to Doug York. Doug is great. It was awesome. It was so. This is let me tell you what happened. I was doing my thing, and then I get an email from Dover Motor Speedway, and they're like, "Hey, we've seen your Twitch streams." Well, Doug's seen my Twitch streams.
Yeah.
Shout out Doug. And he goes, "We'd like to invite you to a NASCAR race." And I was like, "I don't cover NASCAR. Is that okay?" And he's like, "That's fine. Just do what you do, but do it at the race."
Yeah.
And Dover is only an hour and a half from DC, which I did not realize was it's closer than Richmond. And I went. It was awesome. I got a tub of mashed potatoes. It was shoved in my face. There's so much to do outside the track.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could watch the race. Like they have like TV set up and like certain stations set up where you can watch the race from outside, and not even go in if you don't want to. And they'll have each track is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Dover I really enjoyed because they had like a local beer garden, like a
Yep.
local brewery come out and just like set up a beer garden. Richmond had something similar. And there's like all these vendors and all these things for kids and
Yep.
like playgrounds and music and like companies, of course, but companies have a bunch of free stuff and free
Yeah.
games, and it's like all good fun. And then, of course, in the track is really cool, like the access again that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And then just everyone's just happy for a good time,
Yeah.
and everyone's bringing their cooler.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, "Hey, you want a beer?" Because they noticed like me and my friends were like sitting in the grandstands without beer, and I was like, "Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it."
It is such a great experience, like because you're there for 3 days. If anybody's going, everybody who's traveling there, you're there for the practice, some qualifying. You get the nationwide or something else along with it. The ARCA series maybe on the Saturday, the big race on the Sunday, and it's just a good time, and it's different than a normal baseball or football because you got two teams. At a NASCAR track, you got
Mhm.
38 drivers, 35 drivers. Everybody's cheering for different guys. They're one guy, and it's a blast.
Yeah. Oh, definitely bring hearing protection no matter what motorsport you
Yes.
go to. That's my pro tip. But yeah, I mean, you can vote. You can like root for a team in
Yeah.
NASCAR if you really want to. But I think you like rather root for a driver. That everyone has like opinions on drivers, and
Yeah.
they all want to tell you why they hate this person or why they love this person. So I
Yeah.
always appreciate that.
And then getting the headsets so you can tune into any of the drivers.
Yeah,
That is just the
cool.
cherry on the top right there.
For folks who don't know, you can buy shucks, what are they called again? You can buy like the race radios.
Hmm.
You can rent them out at the track, and essentially it's a little radio with like headset, which would be your noise protector. But you can dial in to any driver's radio. It'll say the name on the radio, and then you can just like tune into what they're doing during the race, which is really fun.
Yeah, because you see things happening around a race that when originally I thought of NASCAR racing, it was just like left hand turn. It was boring. But
Mhm.
going to the track, hearing the battles going on between, and it adds a whole different layer of fun to the experience.
Explain to people that those left hand turns are not just like you making a left hand on the street.
Yeah.
Like you're at a stop sign, you're like, oh, I have to turn left. Like it is the banking on certain tracks,
Mm-hmm.
how rough certain tracks are, whether they've been recently paved or they still have like the 2011 pothole from Daytona, like what the issues there are. It's difficult, especially
Yeah.
how quick they're going, how close they are.
Inches away at
Um,
200 miles an hour, you're in the middle of a three wide. It's crazy.
Certain lengths of each track. Like I like super speedways on iRacing. I can't do short tracks. And I have not mastered those. It's very difficult for me when to lift. Like I still haven't figured it out. I will
Yeah.
get there. But it is, yeah, they're difficult. They're not easy. And I wish people would be like, oh, it's just left hand turns. I'm like, okay, then you try to do it in the simulator that they have at NASCAR races, and then you let me know how you do.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there.
Exactly.
But you have, for example, Fernando Alonso did an incredible weekend with Aston Martin
Oh my
this
God.
past F1 race, this F1 season opener. But like he hasn't won the Indy 500, and he's
Yep.
tried twice. So like each motorsport has like its strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Roman
Well,
Grosjean was an F1, right? And he's doing really well in IndyCar. Like it's just all different. Like
yep.
Kimi Raikkonen
Absolutely.
does well in Formula One, and then NASCAR he did pretty okay in Watkins Glen until
Mm-hmm.
he got yeeted. But he's
Yeah.
gonna go NASCAR again in Coda coming up. So like each discipline is like a just different skill set. You got to
Yeah.
respect all of them, in my opinion. You don't have to watch all of them, but you got to respect all of them.
So now, if you had to rank your favorite sort of forms of racing, F1 atop, NASCAR or GP Sport, what's your ranking?
Ooh, I really enjoyed IndyCar this weekend, but I was just biased because I was there. I really enjoyed IMSA. I
Yeah.
really enjoy multi-class racing. I think it adds a little bit of spice to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so yeah, I'm gonna go with either kind of like endurance racing or just IMSA kind of racing where they have the multi-class
Yeah.
settings, like Le Mans 24 example, or Daytona 24, Sebring 12, things like that. I think that's one of my favorites to watch. And I also appreciate the endurance races of. I understand F1's for speed,
Mm-hmm.
2 hours. If they can go even faster for even less time, I'm sure they would figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate a good 12-hour, 24-hour race where you're like, damn, I should buy this car next time I'm looking for to buy one. 'Cause that's the whole point, right? You win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah.
And it works. So I really appreciate IMSA. And then yeah, probably like somewhere around like IndyCar, F1. I like NASCAR. I think people say NASCAR is boring, and I was like, it's so dramatic. If only you knew about everything
Mm-hmm.
that went on between the drivers and like the teams.
Oh
If I could just
yeah.
explain that to you, you would love it.
Yeah. What about rally? Have any interest in going out into the woods and watch a rally race?
I do. I feel like it's a little bit harder though because you are just stationed in one place and you see
Right.
them like zoom by you every so often.
Yeah.
No, but I think we always argue. Of course, you can't compare who's the best. Like who's the best driver in the world, right? You
Yeah.
can't compare.
No.
People will say Max Verstappen, F1, blah blah blah. But I'd say he's like Sebastian Loeb from rallying because
Mm-hmm.
I just think rallying like every single kind of surface, every single kind of track, and
Yeah.
like the way you can control your car
Day
and
and
navigate.
night, and yeah, it's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, I think rallying is crazy, but I don't know if I would ever. I mean, I would go to a race, like sure.
Yeah.
It just might be a little different experience than what I'm used to.
Mm-hmm. And now that you're going to these tracks, and are you crossing paths with your traditional media people, and do they know who you are, like you're a Twitch streamer? Do they even know what Twitch is? Are you having any like conversations
Ooh.
with people?
It's like 85% no, 15% yes.
Yeah.
Some people I've just met because they frequently see me in. It's like the same people,
Yeah.
like especially for photographers, medias, or like motorsport
Right.
writers. They've seen it. Um, uh, NASCAR, no one has any idea what's going on. It's just someone sat down with me because like the cafeteria, the meeting room. I'm like, there's only like 5 tables. They're like, hey, can I sit here? Absolutely. Like, I'm not gonna hog 10 chairs.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, so what do you do? Like, who do you write for? Like, who do you work with? And I
Right.
was like, myself. And he goes, what do you mean? That makes no sense. And I go, well, I'm I just never know what to say because I don't want to say influencer. Ugh.
Right. Yeah.
But like content creator, like everyone now calls himself a content creator. So it's just like, how do I distinguish myself?
Right.
So I was like, I stream on Twitch as like a content creator, and I like try to add really quickly like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm like, how do I factor all that?
Right.
If someone is listening can tell me how I can market myself a little bit better. And he goes, I don't know what that is. And I was like, oh, I was like, imagine Sports Center. I do that, but on a website called Twitch.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, so you work for ESPN? And I was like, no, I was just using that as a metaphor.
Right.
I was just, and then I was like, at some point, you're just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, I work for ESPN. Just, I don't care. Yeah, so a lot of traditional media in NASCAR is unaware.
Yeah.
I think IMSA's warming up to the idea
Mhm.
of having me around. As someone from IMSA is listening to this and like cackling, denying my entry to the next race. I know people in the IMSA like media center. They're
Yeah.
really nice and they're fine. And IMSA is pretty accessible in
Mhm.
general, so it's pretty like. And if you get like if you sign up with a team or you just work with a team, and teams are pretty open
Yeah.
as well. You kind of get the same access. You just don't go into the media center,
Yeah.
which is fine.
So now,
It's not a big deal.
is there any communication between you and NASCAR saying, "Hey, I'm," or do they like, "What are you?" And are they clueless to that?
Well, that's a question. I think NASCAR knows I exist.
Yeah.
I don't think they know what to do. A
Right.
lot of, and this is just not just a NASCAR issue. Sorry, NASCAR, I love you. Come back. This is a motorsport, I think, issue. Formula
Mhm.
One is slowly getting there.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of teams or motorsport, like they'll invite me to the race or whatever, and I'll
Yeah.
be like, okay, what's the goal? Like, for example, like a journalist has a story. Like,
Right.
not only are you writing about who you're winning, but like I'm like, I would like to know what sponsors you want me to highlight, and then yeah, I'll make it genuine. Like, it's not going to be an ad,
Right.
but I'd be like, oh, like AWS, like what do like I can talk about it on stream. I can make something up. It's like
Yeah.
improv. Anything we want to highlight, like Dover was very specific. Dover was great. Dover, for example, was like, hey, we want to highlight what you can do around the track. Like
Mhm.
we can show you that one, it's close to DC. We hold a lot of events throughout the year. Show that you don't have to be in the track to enjoy all these festivities that happen.
Yeah.
And how accessible it is. Like we want you to highlight that.
Right.
Like so I was like, great, I can do my thing, but highlight those things.
Yeah.
A lot of people have invited me and they're like, oh, just go do your thing. And I was like, okay. I can talk about conspiracy theories in a corner. Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you want me to talk about? Like, just go do your thing. Showcase the sport. And I was like,
Right.
I could have done that at home. Why do you have me here?
Yeah.
It's just there's like some disconnect where they just don't know what to do because
Mhm.
we're not an employee, but like it's like a weird
Yeah.
balance. But then I just come down with suggestions of like what I've done with other places or what I think would work well here if I can have
Yeah.
this kind of access. This is the video I want to do, or like, can I live stream this? Is a big thing. Can I get access to this,
Yeah.
etc. So I come with more poignant direction sometimes.
Oh, cool. And now, is there one race on the calendar that you would love to go to, just be a part
Indy
of?
500.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even finish it. It's like it was there.
I will sell everything I have to go. I think that'd be amazing.
Now, what about it? The history or
History. I've been to the track for GT World Challenge, and that was incredible.
yeah?
That's like a whole mecca, if I may. Just being there as well. All the volunteers who work there,
Mm-hmm.
they're just like super stoked. First of all, at all racetracks, if you ever talk to a volunteer, they're like, "Oh yeah, I just grew up here. Like I've worked here for like X number of years," or like, "My dad worked in this position and he had to retire, so now I want to volunteer."
Yeah.
Incredible stories, especially from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway volunteers and folks.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think it's a great location. In general, the media center is really nice. It seems like a lot more updated than certain tracks I've been to as
Mm-hmm.
well. Yeah, just the history, the racing that's behind it. I think IndyCar is huge, and I've heard tons of stories of people who've attended before, and they're like, "Yeah, it's a must. You have to go there. Like the energy, the
Yeah.
people, how excited everyone is, etc."
Awesome. And now, did you say you started doing NASCAR watch parties?
Yeah, NASCAR. I added NASCAR and IndyCar to my
And
repertoire.
so now you've got, are you seeing different people show up for the different races or the different,
Yes.
and are, any, like, is chat wilder because it's a NASCAR race versus an F1 race? Everybody's just drinking tea and eating crumpets at F1 watch parties.
No, so it's great because my core community will stay throughout the rest of them, and
Yeah.
they'll be like, "Wow, I've never watched this before." I'll be like, well, so like for example, my huge F1 community, they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll start watching NASCAR because like
Yeah.
we get to still hang out all together, but now we're watching NASCAR and like we'll figure it out
Yeah.
together." But yeah, you will get new people in, and they learn real quick what the vibes are,
Yeah.
and I think we're pretty obvious in how we operate, and or someone comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I'm a woman in motorsport, so if you're coming in and you're like being kind, like that's already a positive because there's already been tons, like way too many instances where people will not watch or be like, or someone will like DM me on Twitter and be like, "Oh, I saw you on Twitch, but you're a woman talking motorsport." I think that's ridiculous. Like, okay,
Really?
I don't care.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Wow,
So the fact you're already in there and like having a normal conversation,
yeah.
I'm like, great, we're off to a fine start.
Yeah.
Like the bare minimum is like what passes for me.
Oh my God. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, so what is, I also saw on your Twitter, your BS competition or BS plus competition. What is that?
Yes. Muse Plus Competition is a BMW sim racing team. So also an esports organization because they not only do they do sim racing stuff, but I've joined as like one of their, I think their first content creator. I'm calling it. I don't care. Sorry if I offended someone else on the team, but they have a army of sim racers who like have done ESL Rensport, which is the newest one, and they compete in like with against like Williams Esports and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They primarily represent BMW. Just being a content creator for them, and I stream on their Twitch channel every week on Wednesday. I'll be covering their sim racing stuff when they do races as well, so like
Mhm.
doing watch alongs on their channel, and just like just supporting and getting that access. They're also affiliated with Turner Motorsports and
Mhm.
IMSA, so it's been great because Turner got me access for the Daytona 24, which is
Oh,
how
wow.
I was able to go and get the team stuff. So that was really awesome. So shout out Turner.
Cool. Yeah, I think last year I started watching some of the iRacing stuff, and some of the content people are putting together for these races, you're like watching a NASCAR production with some of them.
It is great, like the sim racing, like the full on, like essentially what iRacing puts together for NASCAR and stuff like that. It is insane.
Yeah. And you're pulling in drivers who are actually physical drivers, and that's adding on to that.
I think the thing I love about sim racing, besides me constantly having to learn how to drive, um, and be faster than the person in front of me, is the fact that you can. I don't know if you can do this in any other sport. I'm just like if you jump in the NASCAR ovals, you
Yep.
will see NASCAR drivers during the week.
Right.
People have race or like Roman Grosjean was also in like an iRacing race like a
Yep.
week ago or something. Someone was telling me in Tampa. And it's just like I feel like no other sport allows that, or like
Right.
you realize that you're playing against someone who's also a professional in that same sport. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
It is. Yeah. You're not going to be, playing some pickup hoops and in walks in like, LeBron or something. That's not happening.
Well, like the virtual Le Mans 24 had right Max Verstappen, for example,
Yeah.
and his team led by Sim.
Yep. That's crazy.
So
It's wild. All right. So what other content creators, people should check out that are maybe flying under the radar or they've never heard of before?
ooh, are we talking like Twitch specifically?
Yeah, for your,
or
in your, anyone that you think people should check out, just, be interested in watching.
ooh. Well, you'd be surprised. A lot of motorsport drivers do stream. For example, I'm sure you know Tony Kanaan,
Yep.
Daniel Morad, Michelle Abate. She streams. Who do I know from streaming? Pondon again, who I mentioned, the Australian Twitch streamer.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's such a good kid. Daniel Gray 10 is a great sim racing streamer. Does a lot of iRacing. He's a goober, but he's great. He's really fun. We have Aerotech, who does iRacing, sim racing stuff as well.
Yeah.
Wow, I have like a list of streamers. I'll just send you a whole email about these. I think those are like the big ones that I definitely watch frequently and participate in. Tony Cowan Brown also does stream. She does more like news and motorsports during the day. So those are the big ones.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan. I saw you just met him recently too.
He is such a nice man, and I don't care what anyone says. You can be nice and be successful. Like there's no way that man has an evil bone in his body. Sure, he has bad days, don't we all?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I'm such a fan, like he did not need to be so nice to me when I started streaming, and I still remember that, like how kind he was, and like the time he's given, and his wife as well. Last year during the Indy 500, like the week of, they sent me like a merch package that I could wear on stream, and I was like, "You guys are so busy right now with like the Indy 500 stuff, and they have like a whole thing during the week, and like they like name driver street, like they have a whole media stuff, and like they took the time to send a package out to make sure I had it for stream and stuff like that.
That's fantastic.
It's just you don't need to do that. It's so nice.
Yeah, I think I was watching Summit maybe one night, and he was doing iRacing, and he had Tony on, and Tony was giving him, hints and instructions. It was such a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll do that. Yeah. You just Thompson, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?"
All right. So now you're stepping away. You're not doing any race coverage. What does Ash do when she's not at the computer and out and about maybe?
No, I just lay on the couch. I'm tired. It takes a lot of mental load for me. I don't know what it is. I get exhausted after a stream.
Yeah.
Some people get amped up. I have to amp myself up to start streaming, especially like Formula One in the mornings. I'm just listening to like heavy like pop music or some like workout gym music. And then afterwards I'm just tired.
Yeah. Well, you're talking the whole time and being on. Yeah. You can't just do it half-ass.
Yeah, I call myself an extroverted introvert. Like I'm good with people and I can talk. But then it exhausts me. Like I need to lay down on the couch. I do like to read. I like to work out. I guess like sim racing is a big thing. Like I already do that for streaming.
Yeah.
What I used to do, I used to be a power lifter, but that kind of slowed down during the pandemic and stuff like that. So I still like to work out and like lift weights when I can. Just going on hikes and stuff when it gets warmer. We do a little bit of paddle boarding.
Nice.
I definitely appreciate things that make me put my phone down. So we rock climb as well during the week.
Nice.
Because the more I can put my phone down, because our entire life as content creators is on screens. I edit videos on my phone. I'm constantly staring at my computer. Even the Peloton has like a screen.
Yeah.
And then I can put it down while I'm watching TV, but it's right there.
Right.
And I just have a bad habit of scrolling, like seeing what's going on in my Discord. Anything that forces me to put my phone down and not be able to use it, i.e. rock climbing, is something I really enjoy.
Yeah, cool. Any book recommendations? What's a book that people should read? That's one of your favorites.
Any TJ Klune books, Under the Whispering Door and House in the Cerulean Sea, that made me cry.
Oh.
And there's also a great book. Oh, I forget the author. It's called A Woman Is No Man. Woman Is No Man. Oh, Etaf Rum. Definitely recommend.
All right. Cool. Any big plans this year?
I've signed a lot of NDAs.
Yeah,
yes, okay. And that's all I got.
All right, that works. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Editing. So did you have any background in, editing and creating content or everything like that, or just taught yourself?
Nope, all self-taught.
Yeah.
You kind of just figure out. Again, you come across all these videos. It's like how to do what.
Yeah.
I downloaded DaVinci Resolve was the first thing.
Yeah.
Because that was free. And I love YouTube. I love the internet. You just Google how to do something, like how to do this effect, how to do whatever. And then eventually TikTok kind of changed that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they prefer like the talking, the natural face-to-face, things like that. Or with like certain minimal things popping up. But yeah, no, it's all self-taught, or I just see what's trending or what other people are doing that's working well. And not mimic, but like adopt it and make it your own, essentially. But yeah, everything is self-taught, from stripping to sim racing to video editing, anything having to do with branding of the Twitch streaming business. You just kind of learn on your own.
Any sponsors or any companies you want to give a shout out to that that helped you along the way?
Ooh, I definitely have to shout out Next Level Racing for supporting me by providing this lovely rig that you see back here.
Oh, nice.
They recently upgraded it too, which is very nice of them, considering what my iRating is. But I really appreciate that. And then Logitech for also giving me a chance and we did a little bit of things with them, and they provided their new Logitech Pro wheel for me, so that was really nice.
Awesome.
And I appreciate that. I was like, oh, hey, thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, hey, you survived the podcast, but before you go, I have asked every guest when they were done, they've got to shout out to somebody who they think has a good story and should come on the podcast.
Ooh, someone who should be on the podcast?
Yeah, who has a good story in your circles?
I'm gonna go with Pondon.
All
I
right.
feel like you should interview. I feel like he'd be great.
Cool. Well, Ash, thank you so much for doing this. It was wonderful to meet you and hear your story.
This was fun. I'm glad we got to find a time and get together and organize this. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you have a good night.
You too.